Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Socorro, Texas. It is May 6, 2025, 5:30 p.m. We call this meeting to order.
Good afternoon. Item number 2, establishment of quorum. Andrew Arroyos,
Here.
Enrique Cisneros,
Here.
David Estrada,
Here.
Julie Dominguez, absent. Osvaldo Reza, absent. Yolanda Rodriguez.
Here.
We have a quorum with 4 commissioners present. Item number 3, open forum. Alfredo, do we have anyone that would like to speak?
Not at the moment.
Thank you. Item number 4, consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I second.
I have a motion made by David Estrada, by Andrew Arroyos, second by Yolanda Rodriguez to approve. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstain?
Abstain.
Motion carried. Regular agenda. Item number 5, public hearing. Request for the proposed amendment to the City of Socorro's master plan and rezoning of Track 6, Block 5, Socorro Grant, located near the intersection of Gateway East Boulevard and Nuevo Eco Tanks Road, Socorro, Texas, from A1 agricultural to ICMUD industrial commercial mixed use, and a variance request from Section 46-451 General Regulations, subsection D, height requirements to allow a 60 feet maximum allowable building height instead of the 45 feet maximum height limitation. A variance request from Section 46-452 procedures, subsection J, to waive the required traffic impact analysis. A variant request from Section 46-631 off-street parking requirements, 16-A, to allow a reduction in parking space requirements of 1 space per 400 square feet of net leasable office space instead of the 1 space per 350 square feet requirement, and a variance request from Section 46-631 off-street parking requirements, 17-A, to allow a reduction in parking space requirements of 1 space per 5,000 square feet of net leasable warehouse space instead of the 1 space per 500 square feet requirements, to allow for a distribution and warehouse facility. Mr. Arroyos?
Good afternoon, everybody. We will open public hearing at 5:33.
We have no one that would like to speak.
Okay, don't have anybody, so we will close public hearing at 5:33.
Thank you. Item number 6, consider and take action on the approval of the proposed amendment to the City of Socorro's master plan and rezoning of Track 6, Block 5, Socorro Grant, located near the intersection of Gateway East Boulevard and Nuevo Hueco Tanks Road, Socorro, Texas, from A1 agricultural to ICMUD industrial commercial mixed use, and a variance request from Section 46-451 General Regulations, subsection D, height requirements to allow a 60 feet maximum allowable building height instead of the 45 feet maximum height limitation. A variance request from Section 46-452 procedures, subsection J, to waive the required traffic impact analysis. A variance request from Section 46-631 off-street parking requirements, 16-A, to allow a reduction in parking spaces requirements of space 1 per 400 square feet of net leasable office space instead of the 1 space per 350 square feet requirement, and a variance request from Section 46-631 off-street parking requirements, 17-A, to allow a reduction in parking space requirements of 1 space per 5,000 square feet of net leasable warehouse space instead of the 1 space per 500 square feet requirement, to allow for distribution and warehousing facilities. Mr. Botello?
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Jose Botello, planner with the City of Socorro. Item number 6 on the agenda is the TPA Surratt Industrial rezoning request. And some general information on this request. The property owner is DLA&M Properties. The representative is Adam Dewar with Logistics Land Investment LLC. The size of the property is 21.93 acres. The property is currently zoned A1, which is agricultural. Current land use is vacant. And the future land use map from the Socorro 2040 Comprehensive Plan shows this property as industrial commercial mixed use. And so once again, the request is for approval of rezoning of a property from A1 to ICMUD with variance request from section 46-451, general regulations under subsection D, height requirements to allow a 60-foot maximum allowable building height instead of the 45-foot maximum height limitation, a variance request from section 46-452 procedures under subsection J to waive the required traffic impact analysis, a variance request from section 46-631 under off-street parking requirements, subsection 16A to allow a reduction in parking space requirements of 1 space per 400 square feet of net leasable office space instead of the 1 space per 350 square foot requirement, and a variance request from section 46-631 off-street parking requirements as well under 17A to allow a reduction in parking space requirements of 1 space per 5,000 square feet of net leasable warehouse area instead of the 1 space per 500 square feet to allow for a distribution and warehousing facility. And so for the recommendations, you'll see that it's broken down to help clarify the approvals of the variances. Staff is recommending approval of the rezoning request. Staff is also recommending approval of the variance request from section 46-451 under general regulations, subsection D, height requirements. This is to allow a 50-foot maximum allowable building height instead of the 60-foot maximum height being requested in lieu of the 45-foot maximum building height restriction. There has been a small change in the recommendation for the following variance, which would be to recommend to go with the alternative and recommend the approval of the variance request to waive the required traffic impact analysis with the condition that the TIA be submitted during the subdivision phase of the development, which is in accordance with section 38-59.2 applicability, subsection D, as it complies with the requirements outlined in that section of the code. Staff recommends approval of the variance request from section 46-631 off-street parking requirements, subsection 16A, to allow a reduction in parking space requirements of 1 space per 400 square feet of net leasable office space instead of the 1 space per 350 square foot requirement. And staff is also recommending approval of the variance request from section 46-631 off-street parking requirements, 17A, to allow a reduction in parking space requirements of 1 space per 2,000 square feet of net leasable warehouse area instead of the 1 space per 5,000 square foot requirement being requested, which is in lieu of the 1 space per 500 square foot requirement to allow for distribution and warehousing facilities. And then we also have Mr. Jorge Rajeda from CEA present here as well. Just wanted to make that, throw that out there. And so on the next slide, you'll see the location map. This property is situated right within the City of Socorro city limits, within close vicinity to I-10 and Nuevo Hueco Tanks Boulevard. The next slide, you'll see the zoning map, the property outlined in a yellow line, the green denoting that the property is currently zoned A1, which is agricultural. These are just some pictures taken from within close proximity to the site, the top one being from Gateway East Boulevard, the bottom picture taken from Socorro Logistics Lane. And this is the aerial image showing the property outlined in yellow. And then the future land use map taken from the Socorro 2040 comprehensive plan, the purple overlay meaning that this property was anticipated to be rezoned to ICMU. And the public notice map showing the properties that were notified for this rezoning request. I believe it was only 2 properties, given the size of each abutting property. We did not receive any correspondence in favor or support of the rezoning request. The letters were sent out for this rezoning request, both in English and Spanish. And then this is the development plan that was submitted showing the intent for this rezoning, which is to establish a warehousing and distribution facility. And then on the next slide, you'll see the development plan showing the proximate location, which is within close proximity to the Socorro Logistics Center development. And then a little bit larger detail for this rezoning. So it's intending to tie into the Socorro Distribution Drive shown below. The development is scheduled to be completed according to this schedule late November of 2026. And this is a waiver request for the traffic impact analysis, requesting to waive the requirements for the TIA under the requirements that are outlined for rezoning to ICMUD. And so once again, the summary of this request is approval of a rezoning of a property from A1 to ICMUD with variance request from section 46-451 under general regulations, subsection D, height requirements to allow a 60-foot maximum allowable building height instead of the 45-foot maximum height limitation. A variance request from section 46-452 procedures under subsection J to waive the required traffic impact analysis. Waive a variance request from section 46-631 under off-street parking requirements, subsection 16A to allow a reduction in parking space requirements of 1 space per 400 square feet of net leasable office space instead of the 1 space per 350 square foot requirement. And lastly, variance request from section 46-631 under off-street parking requirements, subsection 17A to allow a reduction in parking space requirements of 1 space per 5,000 square feet of net leasable warehouse area instead of the 1 space per 500 square foot requirement to allow for distribution and warehousing facilities. And at this time, staff can answer any questions. So we also have Mr. Grajeda present to answer any questions as well.
Real quick, just to be on that I'm understanding this right, they are gonna have to do a TIA, just not be turned in right now, right? It'll be turned in before it's platted or what?
Yes, so the requirements outlined under the process for rezoning to ICMUD does require a traffic impact analysis. They did request the waiver to dismiss that requirement, but there is a section under the subdivisions chapter. This is under section 38-59.2 under applicability, which is under Article 2 of the subdivision chapter. And under subsection D, it states that a subdivider may request to the planning department that the submittal of the traffic impact analysis be deferred to the subdivision stage of the development. The request shall be approved provided the following requirements are met. Number 1, the property proposed for rezoning has not yet been platted, which is the case for this request. And number 2, the proposed development generates less than 500 peak hour trips, which is supported by their letter showing that they anticipate 56 a.m. peak hour trips and 59 p.m. peak hour trips. So based on that, on those on those requirements, you know, they're allowed to defer the traffic impact analysis until the subdivision portion of this development.
Any questions?
Is the applicant okay with deferring and submitting the TIA until?
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the Commission. Jorge Grajeda with CA Group. Our original intent was to get a waiver, seek a waiver now during the rezoning process and of the TIA. The City of Socorro has, you know, two codes, right? The one that Mr. Botello mentioned about, you know, applicability, 3859.2 mentions, you know, development will generate more than 50 peak hour trips. We're generating 59 at worst case scenario, so we're only, you know, nine trips over that. But section 3859.4, under criteria for determining traffic impact analysis requirements, the code calls for anything less than 99 peak hour trips. It says may be required at the discretion, you know, of the city manager or designee. So just because our thresholds was, you know, very low and obviously under the 99, we wanted to see if we could get the waiver now. But if the commission, you know, denies the waiver now, and then we're okay with, you know, obviously, you know, submitting and looking at it during the subdivision process. But our original intent was just based on, you know, we are over the 9 generated trips. We're under the 99. So it's you know, you could read it two different ways. But we've always, as you could tell, the infrastructure that that this development is going to be used, it's going to be supported by this current Socorro Logistics development that's, you know, ongoing construction right now. Those streets have already been built. The traffic signals have been built, so we're really just extending to that. So we thought, you know, this really subdivision or this warehouse is going to be supported by the infrastructure that's being built currently right now within the Socorro Logistics development.
Will Socorro Distribution Drive connect to I-10?
So we originally, when we did the master plan for this development, that was something that we had spoken to the city of Socorro, the planners back then, the directors back then. We went ahead and showed it, but because there is, you know, different ownerships all the way up to I-10, you know, I think the city of Socorro wanted to just look at just maybe the intent of maybe getting an access easement through there and, or perhaps extending that to the gateway frontage. But because there are multiple ownership groups that are there, it's, you know, it may or may not happen.
So, okay. It wouldn't come back to Nuevo Hueco Tanks, Socorro, like it wouldn't turn back to Nuevo Hueco Tanks, the Socorro Distribution Drive? Or will it just butt into the other owner?
Yeah, it would just abut at the end of that property line, at the end of your, I guess the city of Socorro jurisdiction limits. Right. The county of El Paso is currently working on a regional pond to right below where we're showing Socorro Distribution Drive. They're working right now on a project, a separate project that they're looking at building a big detention pond. So yeah, that Socorro Distribution Drive wouldn't reconnect back to Nuevo Hueco Tanks.
So right now, access would be through Nuevo Hueco Tanks or North Loop into the existing warehousing that's there?
Correct.
Those roads, and then that would be the access to get to this.
Correct. So Socorro Distribution Drive would be extended up to the project limits to provide access to this proposed project.
I have a question. So you guys produce these numbers, right? The 56 and 59 peak hours?
Right.
How do you guys come up with
So
those
these
numbers?
numbers are derived from the ITE. It's the Institute of Transportation Engineers. So they're guidance that are used by engineers all over the world. They're comprised of thousands of professionals, engineers. They update these on a regular basis. This is the latest edition, and this is kind of what the guidance is for us to be able to calculate numbers based on this. Obviously based off of research that they've done and all that.
Okay. I have some more questions. So, Mr. Boteo, we're asking, or the applicant is asking for the variances even after, these are the variances even after they're reflecting the new changes that were made recently for the height and the parking?
I believe they're still,
They're still working on those?
for the parking requirements?
Yes, sir. Because either that, I don't know, I missed the last two meetings, so I don't know if that's come to the board yet, or if it's still gonna come where we have the new height requirements and the new parking requirements, or is that still down the pipeline?
Going to city council for approval next meeting.
Okay. So.
It's not official.
It's not official yet. So if we compare these numbers to what city council is gonna vote on, would there be a variance, or would these still be within the new guidelines if approved?
So the requirement right now is for the parking space requirements is 500 square feet, right? The code requires that. The applicant is requesting 5,000 square feet. But it's almost, what we're recommending is almost in the middle, which aligns with the 2,000 square foot amendment being proposed to city council next week. And so we're going based off of that new anticipated amendment to the parking requirements, which would be 2,000 square feet per.
Okay. So let's say, so it's gonna be on city council's desk, and the change will be 2,000, but the applicant's still requesting a variance of one space for every 5,000.
Right, so.
So a little bit more than double.
Yeah, so our recommendation is to kind of almost meet them halfway, right? Halfway would have been 2,500 square feet, so staff's recommendation is to approve reduction in parking space requirements of one space per 2,000 square feet instead of the 5,000 square feet.
Okay. So, and this is just for my own confusion or clarification. So right now, it's going to city council, and if approved, the future rule will be one space for every 2,000 square feet.
Correct.
Okay, which is what they're asking for here, or they're asking,
So they're requesting 5,000 square feet, a reduction in parking space requirements, right?
okay,
They're requesting for 5,000, but Socorro's only gonna let them do 2,000 if we
okay,
Yeah.
approve it.
okay. I
Which
get
is
it.
what we, anticipate, if approved, the amendment to be from now on. So now on, if approved by city council, then the parking space requirements would be changed to one space per 2,000 square feet.
Okay, thank you for that. And then on the other variance on street parking, can you go a little bit further into that? Are they asking to be able to park on the street?
No, I think the other parking requirement is for the office spaces. So typically, these developments have, when the tenant moves into the property or to the warehouse, you have a certain amount of office space. And so that office space dictates the amount of parking spaces that you need. And I believe currently the requirement is 350 square feet of net leasable office space.
Oh, okay, because it said off Dash Street, so that's office street parking.
Off-street, yes. That specific ordinance outlines the requirements for parking.
But for office spaces.
So anytime you have a development, depending on what you're proposing, like if you're proposing a gym, like a movie theater, the requirements change based on the usage, right? For warehouses, office spaces require 350 square feet.
Okay,
And so they're going up a little bit more and asking
for 400.
400.
Okay. Thank you.
So I have a question, just to clarify. The staff's recommendation is to deny the waiver of the required traffic impact analysis, but he is actually telling us how much traffic he's gonna produce. I'm just a little confused, especially because there's only two outs, you know, either North Loop or you hit Hueco. And so even if the gentleman had to produce a traffic analysis, what are we gonna change? I'm just confused.
So whenever you request to rezone a property to ICMUD, which is the industrial commercial mixed-use developments, the ordinance requires the applicant to submit a traffic impact analysis. The traffic impact analysis is a report, like Mr. Grajeda mentioned. It's like a software that takes into consideration several factors, whatever they may be, and it generates a report of how many trips that specific development is going to generate. And so in speaking with them, to my understanding, what they're proposing to do in the future is to resubmit the master plan for the Socorro Logistics Center, which has already been established. It's already been approved. It's under construction. And so they're going to be able to utilize their current network of streets to tie into this development. So long story short, they can select, or they can ask the city to waive this requirement during the subdivision phase, because it does comply with the restrictions that are posed on that request, which is number one, the property proposed for rezoning has not yet been platted. So the next step you'll see is the platting portion. And then number two, the proposed development generates less than 500 peak hour trips. So based on that generation of trips being 56, well under the 500 peak hour trips, that's where the city can agree to waive this requirement until the subdivision phase.
So in other words, they're gonna comply with it, it's
Right.
just that they just wanna skip that step since it requires it on this process.
Correct.
But it does comply with it. If you deny it and it goes through, they're still gonna be compliant with it.
Yeah, if you deny it, I mean, it would have to, the denial of this variance request would mean that they would have to submit a traffic impact analysis. And the
When they
alternative,
really don't need it, because they're already, they're complying with it already, right?
not necessarily, but based on their option that the ordinance gives them, they do comply with that specific ordinance, which allows them to defer it to the subdivision stage, if that makes any sense.
Which they're willing to do,
Correct.
and that's what you're recommending, that's what staff is recommending.
Yes, because in speaking with them, they are aware that it's beneficial to look at the Socorro Logistics Center development, resubmit an application for that master plan. Given the nature of this development, that it's industrial, commercial, it complies with the current rezoning of Socorro Logistics Center. So it meets all the requirements to be a part of that development.
So, if nobody has any questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve with staff recommendations only, and with the only denial being that TIA be submitted during the subdivision request. If I worded it correct or not.
It would be, I guess, recommending the alternative to, which states the intent to defer it to the planning phase.
Right, which is on here, right?
Mhm.
So it's on
Yeah.
staff
The
recommendations?
staff report.
But
Oh.
on the staff report is different than what's here.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm sorry, so the update was done today, my apologies.
so if I make a motion to approve, I can make with staff recommendations only, the only one that wouldn't be is the denial one would be changed, right?
So this is the current recommendations. The change being that the alternative was added to I guess, facilitate the motion.
Yes.
So you can make it Motion to approve based on the most recent recommendation?
And, I mean, should you choose to approve the alternative?
Maybe the easiest way to say is to, motion to approve with staff recommendations, and as to the TIA analysis, to approve a variance, with the condition that it be submitted during the subdivision phase.
Okay.
It's still a lot of words, but.
Right, I'm gonna try it. So I make a motion to approve with staff recommendations, including the TIA to be turned in when the subdivision is being platted, which was the latest form that you guys have, right? I don't know if that makes sense.
That sounds,
Maybe at the end I'd say when the TIA is submitted,
Okay,
or
when,
or during the development subdivision phase.
okay. So as long as the TIA is submitted during the subdivision phase.
Yeah, that's obvious.
I'll second.
I have a motion made by Andrew Arroyo, second by David Estrada I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, with Enrique Cisneros, to approve with staff recommendation and alternative.
That's fine.
All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstain? The motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 7, public hearing request for the proposed amendment to the City of Socorro's master plan and rezoning of Lot 1, Block 9, Alameda Estates Replet subdivision located at 340 Escalante Drive, Socorro, Texas, from R1 Single Family Residential to R2 Medium Density Residential to allow for a two duplexes. Mr. Arroyos?
Good afternoon, everybody. We will open public hearing at 6:02. No, we don't have any speakers, so we will close at 6:02.
Thank you. Item number 8, consider and take action on the approval of the proposed amendment to the City of Socorro's master plan and rezoning of Lot 1, Block 9, Alameda Estates Replat subdivision located at 340 Escalante Drive, Socorro, Texas, from R1 Single Family Residential to R2 Medium Density Residential to allow for 2 duplexes. Mr. Botello?
good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Item number 8 on the agenda is the rezoning request at 340 Escalante Drive. So some general information on this rezoning request. Property owner is EVA Development LLC. The representative is Mr. Enrique Ayala, who is present at this meeting today. The size of the property is 12,414 square feet. The current zoning for the property is R1, which is single-family residential. The current land use is vacant. The Socorro 2040 Comprehensive Plan's future land use map shows this property as suburban residential. And the summary of the request, once again, is for approval of a rezoning of a property from R1 to R2 to allow for 2 duplexes. And staff is recommending approval of the rezoning request. And so on the next slide, you'll see that the property is situated along Escalante Drive, cornering Potenza Drive as well. And this is the zoning map of the property outlined in a thick red line, yellow denoting the current R1 single-family residential zoning district. This is a view of the property from Escalante, the top picture, and from Potencia Drive being the bottom picture. You can see that the property is currently vacant. Followed by an aerial image, the property being outlined in a yellow line. And this is taken from the Socorro's 2040 Comprehensive Plan. This is the future land use map showing that this property was anticipated to be suburban residential. The following slide shows the zoning map for the subdivision, which in this case is the Alameda Estates replat. This subdivision was recorded back in December of 1972, made up of 173 lots, 164 of them being R1, 6 of them being R2, and 3 of them being zoned R3. And there's no commercial lots on this property, and there's currently 3 vacant lots within the subdivision. A notice was sent to constituents within a 200-foot radius of the property. The properties that you see in a light purple were notified for this request. Staff did not receive any correspondence for this rezoning request. The following slides shows the letters that were sent, both in English and Spanish. And then followed by the site plan showing the 2 duplexes, parking spaces, and a preliminary ponding area towards the rear of the property. And so once again, the summary of the request for approval of a rezoning of a property from R1 to R2 to allow for 2 duplexes. And at this time, staff can answer any questions. We also have Mr. Ayala present to answer any questions as well.
I've got a quick question. I'm looking at this and it's showing that they're proposing a 6-foot chain link fence, correct?
I believe that's correct.
I think that's that's what's showing on the site plan.
What was your question?
So my question is, since it's showing chain link fence and it isn't an existing subdivision, what would be the odds of them doing, if they have a neighbor next to them, or why not building a rock wall instead of a chain link fence? Just on the abutting neighbors. Or as long as it's a 6-foot high fence of any sort, either wrought iron chain link fence or rock wall, does it matter? I mean, they're conforming with a 6-foot fence, right?
Yeah, so I think that would be at the owner's discretion to have any sort of, fence running, separating both duplexes.
Mr. Cisneros?
I have a question. So we've looked at a number of these, and usually what has happened in the past, and not that, just to kind of get a sense of staff's recommendation, we've usually, the previous request, we would approve a single duplex. I'm kind of wondering why staff approved 2 duplexes for a lot this size.
When you look at the formula or the density limitation of 15 units per acre, the 4 units do comply with that requirement. So the lot is currently 12,414 square feet. If you divide that by 2,904, which is what the code outlines as the requirement, right? So 1 acre of land equals 43,560 square feet. If you take that number divided by 15,
That'd be 2.8.
you get 2,904 square feet, right?
Yeah.
And so 2,904 times 4 units, the property would have to be a minimum of 11,616 square feet. So in this case, the property has just a little bit over that requirement.
Mr. Body, you're always really fast to find the code. What would be the minimum square footage for an R2 without a variance?
Give me just a second, let me look it up here. You said without a variance?
Yes, sir.
go to this aerial picture right here? That one.
Okay, hopefully I got this right. So this is R2, medium density residential district. Area requirements 46-262. Area requirements for this zone shall include minimum lot area, A, 6,000 square feet for areas with ponding, B, 10,000 square feet for areas without public ponding. Then it's got the minimum yard setbacks. That's all it says.
Okay.
Unless I'm looking at the wrong,
No,
does that sound right?
That sounds right.
So, I think we've discussed this here, right? We've discussed this several times. So, I understand the formula that, where it comes from, the ordinance, the existing formula that's there at per acre, but that formula, I believe, is for high-density units, apartment complexes. And so, we're taking that formula, very advanced, and applying it to 15,000, 12,000 square foot lots. It results in two lots over. I have no idea what's going on, but that looks more like an apartment. Trying to count the ACs on it, if they are in fact air conditioners, in the white roof building there. And so you end up with that when with high density, right? There's a lot of units there. And so what we have talked about doing in the past is allowing 2 units per 10,000 square feet. And so on this one, like, let's say if it has 15,000 square feet, then it might say it's 3 units on it, right? But the way we discuss it is for every 10,000 square feet, it's 2 units. So if you do 4 units, you can do 20,000 square feet. The entire half of the lot, right, the entire thing. I think just for the sake of being consistent, we should stick to that until the ordinance is revised or something that is, and we understand that it's in process. But these lots are all, these subdivisions are all 10,000 minimum usually, right? And so like this one being corner lot, 12,000 square feet, and you want to put 4 units in there. I think it just, the neighbors, all the single families around there, and now they're just wanting to, a lot of high density units. So I look at it from both sides, take full advantage and put as many apartments in there as possible. On the building side of it, the subdivision integrity part of it, the tax part of it, I would say let's stick to 2 units for every lot. And this one is the maximum. We just passed that one that was similar to that. I guess I think it was this year. Oh, and the next comment on it is that semi-site plan. But and then the chain link fence that Mr. Arroyo was referencing, but it makes it look like a lot split, right? And which, if you were to do that, this would be 6,000 feet per lot. And you'd have 2 units on 6,000 square feet, basically. And it's not a lot split. I understand that's why you're saying it would be up to the owner because he can build a fence if he wants to. Or if he doesn't want to, we can't force him to do it. But that would be further splitting that lot visually, and that's just what it appears like. But on the plat, it's one big lot. Which doesn't matter to me if there's a fence or not, but what matters is the density.
Ms. Rodriguez?
No, I was looking at the square footage of each of these properties, so it looks like almost like 1,900 square feet per unit. So you're looking at what, maybe a 1-bedroom? Is that what we're looking at, of 1 bedroom per unit?
Salting? No, these would be 3-bedroom, 2-bath each unit.
Okay, well,
About how many square feet living area per unit?
It's about 900 and...
it says 947.
Yeah, 947.
It's small. And you said there are three bedrooms.
3-bedroom, 2-bath. Each one's gonna have its own parking. As far as the division in between the lots, if you see behind each building, it's gonna be another division, so that each tenant will have their own separate yard. That's it.
Do you think you can make it work with one duplex?
Discussing with the owner, he would like at least 3. I mean, like you said, there's a building there next to it, which has, what is it, 12 units. That one doesn't even have ponding area. This one's proposing ponding area.
So if you were to agree to do 3 units, did he already pay for the architectural to have these buildings built like this, or does he still have time to change it back to a duplex?
Well, it's already been paid for, but we can do some changes. It'll be a different plan.
I'm ready to make a motion, and I'm gonna propose just a duplex. Any other questions?
No.
No?
No.
I'd like to make a motion for approval, but with the variance for only a duplex.
A second.
Yes. Or,
I have a motion made,
Motion on this, duplex,
For just one?
one duplex.
I have a motion made by Enrique Cisneros, second by David Estrada, to approve with the variance of only one duplex. All those in favor of the motion?
aye.
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 Any nays? Any abstain? Motion carried. Item number 9, public hearing request for the proposed conditional use permit and variance request from section 46-237, conditional uses requires permit, subsection 5C, to allow concrete pavers instead of the concrete slab requirements to allow for a commercial truck parking in a R1 single-family residential zoning district on track 4E, block 28, Socorro Grant, and located at 11541 Dindinger Road. Mr. Arroyos?
Good afternoon, we open public hearing at 6:18.
No speakers.
So we will close public hearing at 6:18.
Thank you. Item number 10, consider and take action on the approval of the proposed conditional use permit and variance request from section 46-237, conditional uses requires permit, subsection 5-C, to allow a concrete pavers instead of the concrete slab requirements, to allow for a commercial truck parking in a R1 single-family residential zoning district on track 4E, block 28, Socorro Grant, and located at 11541 Dindinger Road, Socorro, Texas. Mr. Botello?
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Jose Botello, planner with the City of Socorro. Item number 10 on the agenda is the conditional use permit request at 11541 Dindinger Road. So some general information on this request. The property owner is Mr. Enrique Lopez and the testamentary trust of Aaron Lopez. The representative is Mr. Luis Carlos Lopez. The lot size is 0.503 acres. The zoning for the property is R1, which is single-family residential. Current land use is residential. And so the applicant is requesting approval of a conditional use permit and a variance request from section 46-237 under conditional uses, which requires a permit, subsection 5C, to allow concrete pavers instead of the concrete slab requirement, to allow for commercial truck parking in an R1 single-family residential zoning district. Staff is recommending approval of the conditional use permit and is recommending denial of the variance request. So on the next slide, you'll see the property is situated along Dindinger and Valle Romero Drive. The next slide, you'll see the zoning map, the property outlined in red, the yellow denoting the R1 single-family residential zoning district. These are some pictures taken from the property, from along Dindinger Road. And this is the aerial image of the property. You can see from the property the structures as well as the truck, the commercial truck being parked on the property. And so the public within 200 feet of this property were notified for this conditional use permit request. Staff did not receive any correspondence, either approval or denial for this request. And then the next slide, you'll see the notifications that were sent to the constituents in both English and Spanish. And then on the next slide, you'll see the site plan that was submitted showing, it's difficult to see from I guess this scale, or from the monitors, but the truck parking would be situated right along the entrance of the property. And so once again, the summary of this request is for approval of a conditional use permit and variance request from section 46-237. Conditional uses requires permits of section 5C to allow concrete pavers instead of the concrete slab requirement to allow for commercial truck parking in an R1 single-family residential zoning district. And at this time, staff can answer any questions.
The conditional use permit allows for truck parking and the trailer parking, or just the truck?
Only the truck. It does specify that trailers are not allowed on the property.
And then, so you're recommending that portion, but denying the pavers?
Correct.
Would a new, would the new cement work or the concrete slab, would that generate a need for, what's the word I'm looking for, the water runoff plan?
Ponding?
On-site ponding? Would that generate on-site ponding report study?
I don't think so, as that would be classified as an improvement to the site.
But could we request one if that's what we wanted to do? Because again, if I guess that's my question. Would the concrete slab require that they have a on-site ponding study created?
That's not an ordinance.
That's not an ordinance? Only when it's a building?
They need to get a permit for the concrete slab.
They would need a permit, but
There's no
my
pond.
understanding is that this property is non-conforming due to the multiple structures on the property, but like a driveway, or like in this case a slab, that would be
Okay.
considered a site improvement. So there would be no, staff wouldn't have any sort of ordinance to lean on for that request.
Okay. Which means that we couldn't ask for one if we wanted one.
I
I'm
mean,
not saying we
there-
want one, I just want to know what tools we have.
that I can recall, I mean, unless they're proposing an additional structure or to extend an existing structure, that's when current regulations apply. But in this case, the slab itself is considered a site improvement, so we can't.
Is this a
That I'm aware of.
self-ponding lot?
No.
Probably a self-ponding lot, no?
Well, so the legal description lets us know that the property is still under tract form, so it's never been legally platted or developed. So you wouldn't see any ponding, right? The legal description on this property is tract 4E, block 28 of the Socorro grant. And the Socorro
It does
grant,
look like on-site.
So, yeah, I was gonna add that, yeah, so the ponding is not the requirement for the concrete slab. You could, to answer your question, you could tie it in if there was some request that you're granting to tie it into. So, but for instance, on this one, I don't think you can tie it in, so he's asking for a conditional use permit for the truck.
Yeah.
Well, you could say something like, well, I'll give you the conditional use for the truck, but you gotta show us the ponding, but those
It's a
truck
little,
and ponding don't go
it's a
together.
little too far?
If it
Okay,
was something else he was asking for,
okay.
you could kind of, if you wanted the concrete pavers, you could say, well, show me your ponding plan if we allow that. That kind of ties in because it's with the ground. But I still don't think
Yeah.
they really have anything to do with each other, you know? Better examples like the last item that came up, like somebody wants a duplex or 2 duplexes, well, is there enough room on the land for ponding or something? So you can then tie it in together, but with the truck conditional use request, I don't think you can.
Okay, thank you. My next question is, since it is legal non-conforming, do we have the ability to, I guess we wouldn't, where we can limit any new additional buildings to this? This is just a conditional use, so I don't,
well, the ordinance itself, I believe it's under chapter 46. Not too sure which article it is, but there's a subsection under chapter 46 that clearly states that nonconformities are limited to how they are.
okay,
Anytime you remodel or if you're adding square footage to the property, then at that point you have to comply with all the requirements. So if they were proposing to add any structures, then they would have to plat the property first.
Yeah.
To resolve the nonconformity. But it does clearly outline that nonconformities are not encouraged to survive.
yeah. The only issue is that usually we find out that there's additional property or additional buildings on the properties when electrical, gas, or water don't allow for another meter, and then they come to, that's when we kind of find out more than anything. So my question, if we have a second bite of the apple where we can limit the amount of buildings, would now be a good time to do that? And do we have that ability to do that? I'm not saying we should, I'm just saying, I just want to know what the tools are that we have at this point.
I think you could probably in other situations, again, this one, it's kind of like skirts around the issue, because it's a conditional use for a truck.
Yeah.
And he's not adding a building, he's not adding square footage. If he was proposing something like that.
Okay.
Which I don't think he can anyway, because then it's really, it opens up the plating issue and everything like that too, so. Yeah, he has like a very small margin that he can do a few things in, probably like a driveway or the truck. But anything major like that, let's say he's coming and asks for a duplex on his property. Well, no, now I want all these things, and you can't add another building, and X, Y, and Z, and you have to plat it, conform to everything, so. Yeah, he's still like a very thin edge of
Yep.
what he can ask. And this is probably the couple things I think, but.
And then the permit has to be renewed every so often, or
6 months.
it's just a one-time? Okay. All right. I don't have any further questions.
No, I don't have any questions.
So I make a motion to approve with staff recommendations of approval of the conditional use permit and the denial of the variance request.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion made by Andrew Arroyos, second by Enrique Cisneros to approve with staff recommendation and denial of the variance request. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstain? Motion carried. Item number 11, consider and take action on the waiver request from section 38-8.2, preliminary plat plans and data subsection C, engineering report, to waive the storm drainage plan requirements for the Campoya subdivision being Track 17, Block 15, Socorro Grant, and located at Melendez Drive, Socorro, Texas. Mr. Botello?
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Item number 11 on the agenda is the waiver request for the Campoya subdivision. So some general information on this request. This property is situated along Melendez Drive. Property owner is Mr. Eric A. Campoya and Zanity Aneli Castorena. The representative is Mr. Eric Campoya, who's also present at this meeting as well. Lot size of the property is 1.265 acres. The zoning for the property is R1, which is single-family residential. The property is currently vacant, and the summary of this request is for approval of a waiver request for the Campoya subdivision. Staff recommends approval of the waiver request from section 38-8.2, preliminary plat, plans and data under subsection C, engineering reports to waive the storm drainage plan requirements for the Campoya subdivision, as the applicant states a financial hardship for this request. And so on the next slide, you'll see that the property is situated along Melendez Drive. This property is within close vicinity to Bulldog Championship Park. And then the next slide shows the zoning for the property outlined in the thick red line, the yellow denoting the R1 single-family residential zoning district. And these are some pictures taken from the property from along Melendez Drive, followed by the aerial image. And then the preliminary plat that was submitted, you guys saw this a few meetings back, I think. Followed by the final plat for this subdivision. And this is the waiver request form that was submitted to staff, requesting the waiver and disclosing the financial hardship with the requirements to submit the stormwater drainage plan. And so once again, the request is for approval of a waiver for the Campoya subdivision. And at this time, staff can answer any questions.
Is the use for a single-family residence, or what's the future plan use?
Yes, it's to establish a single-family residence.
So, I'm thinking I'm confused as to the subdivision part. Is he going from tract to subdivision, and it's a subdivision of one lot?
Yes, so, so his intent was to build a house on the property that he just recently purchased. And, like in this case, right, the legal description, states that it's part of the Socorro grant. The property was never developed or legally platted. And so he's currently under the process of platting the property. I believe the preliminary and final plat are going to council on the next, on this coming meeting. And so the request for the waiver was submitted after the meetings were set for his subdivision.
Okay.
Which is why the timing is a little bit off.
Okay. So it's a subdivision of one lot, basically.
One lot.
I'm asking for the waiver on stormwater.
Correct.
Okay.
And then I believe they also stated that the property has water rights, which they intend to use as well.
I don't have a problem approving it. I do think they should have a drainage plan. That's my thinking. A storm drainage plan?
Well, if it was a subdivision, I think with multiple lots, then yes, but it's one. If they come back and try to replat this one subdivision into multiple lots, then I think, yeah.
Do
Right
you,
now, it's one large tract that was farmed, has water rights.
Do we usually request well, I mean, that's why there's a variance, right? Because we usually request it for even single-family residents.
What do you mean?
So, I guess my question is even when we're developing one single-family residence, does that usually generate the requirement for a storm drainage plan?
Yeah, so typically, any sort of development, whether it be residential, commercial, industrial, these engineering reports are required based on that specific section 38-8.2, which is the preliminary plans and data section. And under subsection C, we disclose on the ordinance all the engineering reports that are required to be submitted. Once you submit the plats for your subdivision, you're also supposed to submit, all these engineering reports, which are the soils analysis, the stormwater drainage plan. There's other reports that may not apply, but typically these two reports are required.
Is this one different because it does have water rights, and I guess, it's been watered forever? That might be grounds to...
It is unusual in the fact that it has water rights, and I mean, having a stormwater drainage plan like a ponding area
Doesn't really
would
fit
defeat
the
the purpose of utilizing the water rights, right? So all the water would then collect in the ponding area. So there's a valid justification for that, and the code also states that if there's a hardship, financial hardship, that's where they can request this waiver.
I mean, I'd approve, and I would waive it because of the onsite, or because of the water rights. I mean, either way, it's an approval. So, yeah. Ready to make a motion? Nobody has questions? Make a motion to approve, and along with staff recommendation to waive the request for the storm drainage plan.
I second.
I have a motion made by Enrique Cisneros, second by Andrew Arroyos to approve with staff recommendation of the waiver request. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstain? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Item number 12, Planning and Zoning Commissioners Report.
So, real quick, the City of Socorro is hosting the Little League for baseball, ages 7 to 13. The first game will be this Saturday. If anybody has children that want to start playing or learn how to play baseball, it's a really great opportunity. We're also looking for sponsorships, so if you know any business owners that want to write us a check, let us know.
Anything else? No? Okay. Item number 13, Planning and Zoning Department Report. Ms. Kimito?
Thank you, Marion. I just have one update on city projects. Two. The sidewalks, phase 4 is still underway. They're finishing up on Puna and moving on to Haynes. The other item to report on city projects is that Bobby Bridge will be opening tomorrow. And that will be about 9 o'clock, so that will be wonderful to see those two projects complete. The Rio Vista Bridge and finally the Bobby Bridge, which were supposed to have been taken together, but have finally come to completion. And then just to share a bit of good news for our Rio Vista project, the city, not the city, but the CSCI, which is the nonprofit arm of the city, received a $70,000 grant from the Latinos in Cultural Heritage for the Juanse Hut, which is the metal building that's going to be a part of the Bracero Museum. So it's a great news for the city and helping that larger project move forward. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Item number 14, consider and take action on the adjournment of this meeting. Do I have a motion?
A motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I second.
I have a motion made by Andrew Arroyo, second by Yolanda Rodriguez to adjourn. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstain? Motion carried. Meeting adjourned at 6:40 PM. Thank you.